2016 was the year that Islamist terrorism hit Germany hard, culminating in an attack on Berlin. Germans have been shaken, their convictions tested. Chancellor Angela Merkel acknowledges the challenge facing the country. Without a doubt, the most difficult test we faced is Islamist terrorism, which has also had us Germans in its crosshairs for many years. This past year we were attacked in the cities of Würzburg and Ansbach, and just days ago at the Christmas market at the Memorial Church here in Berlin. It's a bitter reckoning, and a despicable one, when terror attacks are committed by people who came here ostensibly to seek safe haven. The attacks are ammunition for those demanding stricter security measures. Even politicians from Merkel's own party have demanded Germany stops taking in refugees, an idea Merkel rejects. We are a free, caring and open people. And as we are confronted with images of the bombed-out city of Aleppo in Syria, we reiterate how important and vital it has been for our country to take in those who truly needed protection and to help them become integrated here. Politicians and parliamentary democracy have been under pressure in 2016. Merkel warns that populists give a distorted view of democracy, a concern in the upcoming elections. I am committed to engaging in a political process that will see impassioned debate among democratic citizens who never forget what an honor it is to serve our democracy and its people. An end-of-year appeal for an open-minded worldview and for Germans to have confidence in themselves and their country.
Concerns over security have grown since a terror attack targeted a Berlin Christmas market early this month. 12 people were killed when a truck rammed into a large crowd. Berlin and London are among a number of European capitals at the moment, boosting security measures, installing concrete blockades and increasing police presence. And it's now emerged too that the man who carried out the attack in the German capital had been on the police radar but wasn't considered a serious threat. With more on that, here's Peter Oliver.
When 24-year-old Anis Amri filmed his video pledging allegiance to the terror group Islamic State, he was here in this part of central Berlin. Filmed seemingly before he ploughed a truck into a Christmas market. Killing 12 people, he called on others to kill non-Muslims any way that they could. But just 5 days before that, he'd actually been assessed by security services here in Germany and deemed that he wasn't an immediate threat to carrying out a terrorist attack. That's despite having known links to Islamic groups and extremists, and despite having been tracked looking up how to make pipe bombs online. He wasn't deemed to be any kind of immediate threat. Security services here in Germany use an 8-point scale to determine the risk a person poses, with number 1 being the most dangerous. Amri was placed at number 5 on that scale, meaning that he was of no significant immediate terror threat. It's left questions over how somebody who actually appears on this list could ever be able to be free to carry out such an attack, as has how he was able to travel through as many as 4 EU countries after the attack, seemingly going from here in Berlin over to the Netherlands before travelling all the way through France, over into Italy, where he was shot and killed just outside of the city of Milan. As fate would have it, just a stone's throw away from where Amri filmed his video, the new headquarters of the BND, and it may well be in this building that German security services try to answer the questions over why a suspect was so miscategorized and able to be free to kill. Peter Oliver, RT, Berlin.
We discussed the current security concerns with counter-terrorism expert Douglas Weeks.
He was on the radar, why exactly they took him off and what factors that they were using to make that determination, I'm not aware of. Well, ultimately, you know, the buck stops with Angela Merkel. She has been under increased scrutiny, not only for some of the recent attacks that have occurred in Germany, but also because of Germany's perhaps more liberal policy when it comes to accepting immigrants. And so it's been an uphill battle for her.
In Berlin comes less than a month after a 12-year-old boy attempted to detonate a bomb at another Christmas market in western Germany. The boy of Iraqi origin was reportedly radicalized and directed by Islamic State. His case has added to fears that youngsters are now being recruited by terrorists to carry out attacks in Europe. Ilya Petrenko has more on the disturbing shift in tactics.
Caliphate Cubs, a squadron of underaged Islamic State soldiers. That's Wikipedia putting them prominently on the list of ISIL units fighting in the battle for Mosul. Here's a father blessing his son before the kid vanishes in a fireball from a suicide blast. And this brainwashed 4-year-old just blew up a group of ISIL captives with a push of a button. Sickening, but no longer that shocking for Westerners, as long as it's happening somewhere in the deserts of Iraq or Syria. Well, this is Berlin. What does it have to do with junior jihadists? That's a Christmas fair in another city, Ludwigshafen. It could have been turned into a bloodbath too, by a bomb allegedly put together by a 12-year-old ISIL sympathizer of Iraqi descent.
Due to the discovery of a nail bomb in Ludwigshafen, we've opened investigations.
The 12-year-old who is accused of planning a bomb attack in Ludwigshafen is currently in custody.
Last week, 10 teenagers were detained in Belgium over fears they were plotting terrorist attacks. Back to Germany, where earlier in Cologne, a Syrian migrant aged 16 was caught allegedly doing the same thing. The Bavaria train axe horror this summer, the attacker ISIL claimed to be one of its fighters was 17. The list is getting longer. The portrait of Europe's new menace, the underage terrorist, is taking shape.
That the suspect is 18 years old, holds German and Iranian citizenship.
The Syrian asylum seeker who blew himself up outside a bar in the German town of Ansbach is now known to have pledged allegiance to the leader of the Islamic State.
Teenage, coming from a refugee background or an actual asylum seeker. Brainwashed remotely through social media or locally in Salafist cells.
It's estimated that ISIL has as much as around about 2 million radicalized young people out there. When they have a belief or adopt a belief that there is nothing good in this world, they become very vulnerable in adapting that belief. And that is exactly the turning point of the psychological use which terrorist organizations use for recruitment. So the weapon is not the radicalization, but the weapon becomes the young people. And the people becomes the weapon against the state.
Do those who must be aware of the trend know enough to act preemptively? The head of police in Frankfurt, Germany's economic hub, warned lawmakers a few months ago the threat of underage jihadists was more serious than thought. But the latest news shows such warnings haven't quite made Europe more secure just yet.
The police is following the structure that they have in place. The problem with it is that they haven't seen this type of terror. And what they haven't really got to understand, that this is a genuine type of war. They need to understand that they have to change the methodology, the approach. The partners across Europe, seeing that this is the fundamental problem in coordination, more than likely many potential terrorists will.
Now, police have deployed tear gas against migrants who tried to force their way through a barbed wire fence on the border between Greece and Macedonia.
Europol, the EU's law enforcement agency, estimates that more than 90% of refugees entering the EU are smuggled in by criminal gangs, and 35% of those refugees are children. Most shockingly of all, Europol says that 10,000 refugee children have gone missing in the EU, and the number is rising all the time. The issue has just been debated in the European Parliament.
I point the finger at our governments who have the political responsibility, in particular for failing miserably our duties to protect any children.
It is feared that many of the missing refugee children are being subjected to sexual exploitation and slave labour at the hands of criminal gangs operating in the EU. Experts have told MEPs that police in the EU do not have sufficient training to deal with the missing children issue. Proper electronic records of children are not being taken, and often unaccompanied refugee children are not given appropriate accommodation.
There are reports that indicate that the proportion of children that go missing from foster care and small family units is much lower compared to the reception centres and institutions.
Members of the public told us that the missing children issue has arisen because EU leaders have mismanaged the refugee crisis.
I think there's a lot of bickering in between countries about what needs to be done and what they are actually doing, and I think we're mismanaging the whole crisis. That's a fair point.
It is really hard to watch on TV the images of so many people arriving on dangerous boats. The figure of 10,000 missing children is shocking. It is obvious that the EU needs to do more.
Analysts say that EU member states are refusing to share intelligence information that could be used to break up criminal gangs, and that while this lack of cooperation persists, the world's most vulnerable people, children, will continue to go missing in the European Union. Jerome Hughes, Press TV, Brussels.
Germany is facing a drastic number of refugees by the end of 2015, believed to be in the region of 1.5 million.
It is not quite on a biblical scale, but an exodus it certainly is. Migrants who've been trapped at the railway station in Budapest, now deciding to walk the hundreds of miles to Germany and what they see as the promised land.
The other side of this tragedy is how it will change Europe. Non-Western migrants had already been flooding into Europe for decades. Leaders refuse to stop it.
We are afraid. We are in danger every day, every minute. They're coming inside, the police. They want to kill each other. You have to do something. Someone has to protect us. They are in our house. We are the victims. We are not them. We have to live like before. We have to live our life. They took it for us. We're not in war. They are. They have to take them from here. It's a city. No place for people like them.
ولكنهم فقدوا إخصابهم ويبحثون عن إخصاب عندنا ننجب منهم لأننا سوف نفتح بلادهم. خذوا اللاجئين سنطلبهم منكم قريبا.
There are increasing groups of people who are essentially asking the question, if the political establishment continues to get its way, in 5, in 10, in 20 years' time, how many Germans are going to be left in Germany? How many French people are going to be left in France? How many English people are going to be left in England?
French writer Renaud Camus calls the influx the Great Replacement and says it's the biggest thing to happen to France since the 15th century.
Quel est l'objectif? Ça va faire parler. Mais l'objectif, c'est relever le défi du métissage. Ce n'est pas un choix, c'est une obligation. Si ce volontarisme républicain ne fonctionnait pas, il faudra alors que la République passe à des méthodes plus contraignantes encore. Nous devons changer alors nous allons changer.
Hardly anyone imagined just 20 years ago that the native French population would be finding itself in a rapidly decreasing minority here.
London has got so ethnically diverse that white Britons are now a minority here.
White families in Birmingham are set to become a minority group for the first time.
The country's most rapidly growing demographic is Muslim,
with Mohammed now the most popular name for baby boys in London.
The high Muslim birth rate is changing the political landscape. Imran is looking forward to replacing Belgian law with Sharia law, including amputation for theft, stoning for adultery, and death to homosexuals.
If they want to push us back or something like that, I don't know, maybe they can start to marry 4 wives and have a lot of children. Start with that, maybe they will have a chance, but I don't think so.
Something else that Muslim immigration appears to have brought to Norway is what some here call a rape epidemic. Recent police statistics showed that in the capital of Oslo, 100% of assault rapes between strangers were committed by immigrant non-Western males, and 9 out of 10 of their victims were native Norwegian women.
They're taking this gay pride march through a predominantly Muslim neighbourhood here in Stockholm, and there are fears that it could stoke tensions between some of the local residents and the people demonstrating here.
Muslim provocation.
It's a provocation against the Muslim men.
Basically, the US is providing these flows for us. You make war and we get the refugees. So.
The United Nations report says Sweden will be a third world nation in about 15 years, below Libya and Bulgaria.
بل إن إخواننا ضحوا أموالهم وحتى أرواحهم فداء لهدف الوحيد. For there is no other path to victory except through sacrifice and jihad for the sake of Allah.
Swedes who disagree with that plan risk being labeled racist, fascist, even Nazi.
This footage of the Revolutionary Front smashing the home of a suspected fascist is one of the many attacks they film and publish on the internet.
Wer diese Werte nicht vertritt, der kann jederzeit dieses Land verlassen, wenn er nicht einverstanden ist. Das ist die Freiheit eines jeden Deutschen.
Wir müssen uns gegen die Nazis stellen. Schon aufgrund unserer Geschichte zwischen 1933 und 1945 sind wir verpflichtet, Flüchtlinge anständig zu behandeln. Dann gibt es ja noch was. Jedes Jahr sterben mehr Deutsche als geboren werden. Das liegt zum Glück daran, dass die Nazis sich auch nicht besonders vervielfältigen. Und schon deshalb sind wir auf Zuwanderer aus anderen Ländern angewiesen.
It doesn't matter if Sweden's immigration model is failing miserably.
هون بروزنغورد الغريب بده يفوت ما بحط عينه بعين حدا بقول ليش بقى بطلع بقول ما في شيء بيجي بطرق قتلك يقول لك السلام عليكم كسروا سيارته الله يلا خلاص بحرم فوت على المنطقة.
If test scores in Swedish schools are plummeting, or if crime in some areas has skyrocketed.
I hope all of them, and everyone else across Britain, will reflect on the universal values that Ramadan represents, and the contribution that British Muslims make to our country.
I cannot believe this. I've never seen anything on this scale before.
Es ist, glaube ich, ein wichtiges Signal an Sie, dass der Islam, so wie der Bundespräsident Wulff es gesagt hat, zu uns in Deutschland inzwischen gehört.
Appalling abuse of at least 1,400 children over a period of 16 years. Children being raped, trafficked, beaten and sometimes doused in petrol. All the perpetrators were of Pakistani heritage.
Ramadan Mubarak to you all.
مع عدم الزواج، مع عدم الرغبة في الإنجاب، الهرب بتاعهم 100 يرثه 80. وال80 بعد 10 سنين يورثهم 60 وال60 يورثهم كام 40 وال40 بعد 10 سنين 10 بعد 20 سنة مش هيبقى في حد.
Since then, an unholy alliance of leftists, capitalists
and Zionist supremacists has schemed to promote immigration and miscegenation with the deliberate aim of breeding us out of existence in our own homelands. First, their immigrant pawns were temporary guest workers. Then it was a multiracial experiment. Then they were refugees. Then the answer to a shrinking population. Different excuses, different lies. But the real aim stays the same. The biggest genocide in human history.
Really ashamed of the racist and xenophobic terms. Is your policy serious, or are you just shouting?
Mr. Griffin. It's you that's shouting, because obviously the truth hurts. I have a constructive suggestion to help those poor asylum seekers from Africa. Yes, make it clear they can't come here, so they don't try to cross the sea and drown in huge numbers. The best way for them is to get the banks off the backs of their countries so they can live in peace in their countries, and we Europeans can live in peace in ours. Thank you.
بعد فترة من الزمن سيكون أوروبا دولة إسلامية واحدة موحدة لا تعرف إلا لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله.
والسيون عدو الله والسيون عدو الله اللهم شتت على النساء آمين ويتم أطفالهم آمين اللهم انصر الإسلام في كل مكان آمين الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله
While some of the residents are newly arrived from the conflict in Syria, many are not. There are Afghans here, Senegalese, Albanians, Pakistanis and Bangladeshis.
Very bored here. You can just eat, sleep, use the slow internet. It's so bad.
Salzau ist ein 36-Seelendorf in der Abgeschiedenheit der holsteinischen Schweiz. In dem leerstehenden Herrenhaus der Gemeinde brachte das Land 320 Flüchtlinge unter. Die Räumlichkeiten sind hochherrschaftlich.
Aber das Problem ist, dass wir haben nicht so viel hier zu machen. Wir brauchen etwas zu machen. Also müssen wir unsere Zukunft wissen, was unsere Zukunft ist.
For dog, not it. Dog. This for women.
Saft mit 15% Zucker, beschwert sich der syrische Asylbewerber über den Inhalt der Essenspakete. Als erster Regierungsbezirk soll in Niederbayern ab Januar stattdessen Bargeld ausgezahlt werden.
I want money because I want to smoking and tell my mother in the Syria.
Are staging a sit-in, refusing to go to an asylum center.
You people, before you speak for me, Croatia, good, Asyl. Me go to Germany because Germany very good.
Voices for Refugees. Heute noch auf dieser Bühne. Conchita Wurst.
Try to help us. We are receiving bad condition. Try to help us. We are dying. We are dying. We beg you. Because we suffer too much. I am from Ghana. So many are here. So many people are here. All Africa. Gambia. Even Ivory Coast. Come. No good. Water. Underwater. This is not good. Water.
I've been watching this migration, and I see the people. I mean, they're men. They're mostly men, and they're strong men. These are physically young, strong men. They look like prime-time soldiers. Look, Europe's going to have to handle, but they're going to have riots in Germany. What's happening in Germany, I always thought Merkel was like this great leader. What she's done in Germany is insane. It's insane. They're having all sorts of attacks. They're having
you mean letting in the
that many people.
So we demand our right to stay here. We are here to stay. No matter what it is.
Your democracy is empty box. It is for you. Because you are a racist. We are not going to fear of you. because we are stronger more than yesterday, and we'll be tomorrow more stronger, and we'll defeat you.
This is their final destination. Ordinary German men and women stood here and applauding them. Extraordinary. People handing them water. Welcome to Germany. How do you feel?
The psychological shock when they will see in future what the beautiful society of equality and social justice means in practice, obviously they will revolt. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, he will refuse to believe it, despite of the abundance of information. No one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country.
Refugees are welcome here!
%83 der 200 Rütli-Schüler sind ausländischer Herkunft.
Die Deutschen sitzen sich immer dahin. Die sind immer allein und so.
Und die anderen, wie gehen die mit denen um?
So, die schreien auf die, wir treten die. Die laufen rum, wenn sie die sehen, geben die einfach Stelle. So aus Spaß.
Die sind vier Gruppe. Und wehren die sich, die Deutschen?
Nein. Die haben Angst so.
So, und wir vermehren uns immer mehr. Ihr Deutschen kriegt ja keine Kinder. Ihr kriegt höchstens, wenn es hochkommt, 2 Kinder. Wir machen 7, 8, Alhamdulillah. Okay, Kollege? Und dann nehmen wir uns auch nochmal 4 Frauen, dann haben wir 22 Kinder. So macht Allah Azza wa Jal, der allmächtige Gott, macht das so, dass wir euch erobern, nicht mit Krieg hier in Deutschland, sondern mit Geburtenraten, erstens. Und zweitens, wir heiraten eure Töchter. Ja? Und deine Tochter wird Kopftuch tragen. Und deine Tochter wird einen Bärtigen heiraten.
Boza. Cheers. Take me a picture blind, David. Cheers.
Der Uniplatz in Magdeburg heute Morgen. Eine 19-Jährige war hier heute Morgen um kurz vor 4 Uhr überfallen und brutal misshandelt worden.
Die Frau konnte leider bislang noch nicht befragt werden, da sie aufgrund ihrer Verletzungen derzeit im Krankenhaus behandelt wird.
Es ist bereits der 4. Fall innerhalb weniger Wochen. Anfang Oktober wurde eine 24-Jährige auf einem Friedhof in Magdeburg brutal vergewaltigt. Vor rund 2 Wochen wurden 2 19-Jährige überfallen. Verunsicherung bei den Magdeburgern. Im Zusammenhang mit den bisherigen Überfällen fahndet die Polizei nach diesen Männern. Sie sollen etwa 30 Jahre alt sein und werden von Zeugen als Personen mit südländischem Aussehen beschrieben.
Even if you expose them to authentic information, you still cannot change the basic perception and the logic of behavior. He will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom.
In Chemnitz ist ein 7-jähriges Mädchen am Abend mit ihrem Fahrrad unterwegs. In einem Park wird sie plötzlich von einem unbekannten Mann angehalten. Direkt neben diesem Spielplatz soll der Mann dem Mädchen dann den Mund zugehalten und sie vom Rad gezerrt haben. Danach vergewaltigte er die 7-Jährige. Ihre Mutter soll ganz in der Nähe gewesen sein, bemerkte den Vorfall aber erst, als das Kind weinend zu ihr lief.
Das Mädchen sprach von südländischem bzw. nordafrikanischem Typ.
Europe has not yet learned how to be multicultural, and I think we're going to be part of the throes of that transformation, which must take place. Europe is not going to be the monolithic societies that they once were in the last century. Jews are going to be at the center of that. It's a huge transformation for Europe to make. They are now going into a multicultural mode, and Jews will be resented because of our leading role. But without that leading role and without that transformation, Europe will not survive.
A beetle invasion of biblical proportions has hit beaches in Argentina. The swarm of beetles has come out of nowhere and is leaving experts baffled. Locals reacted with horror after seeing the swarm of the bugs crawling on the beaches in the resorts of Migratory, 31 miles away from the capital Buenos Aires, and San Bernardo. In scenes straight out of a horror film, images posted onto social media show the beaches turned black by the plague of beetles as they cover miles of coastline. Although no one is exactly sure what is behind the phenomenon, social media has exploded with theories. Some believe it is a sign of the end of the world, with commentators claiming the influx of beetles is an ominous warning of impending disaster. Other researchers blame changes in climate and environment, saying that the explosion of beetles is no doubt a symptom of a larger problem.
A breathtaking view. Dead fish everywhere in a lake in Haikou of China's southern island province of Hainan. They were first spotted on Wednesday, and sanitation workers scooped up over 20 tons of them within 5 hours. It's estimated that the total number might be about 50 tons.
If you walk up and down Indian River Lagoon, you will see this. Thousands of dead fish belly up in the water.
I want to turn to a very different kind of security concern this morning. This one outside of Detroit. It involves a massive sinkhole that opened up there on Christmas Eve. More than a dozen homes had to be evacuated, people running out with their Christmas gifts in hand. ABC's Eva Pilgrim is on the story from Fraser, Michigan. Eva, good morning.
Dan, if you look at this fence behind me, you can see that the brick home is leaning at an angle. It appears to be sliding, a sinkhole pulling it in. This morning, families anxiously waiting to see how big this sinkhole gets and what it takes next.
This morning, a state of emergency in Fraser, Michigan, a sinkhole threatening this entire neighborhood.
We're a small town and something big has happened.
The sinkhole devouring everything above it. Authorities concerned it will grow. Homes hanging in the balance. So far, 22 families evacuated, including Sue Alba, who woke up early Christmas Eve to the sound of splintering brick.
Loud noises cracking throughout the evening. They got progressively greater, like boom, boom, boom.
Neighbor Derek Lowen and his father running over to help, grabbing whatever they could.
We kept running in and out as much as we could until police officers told us that we could no longer go in because it was too dangerous.
This isn't a new problem for this town. In 2004, a massive 160-foot sinkhole opened on the same road, shutting it down for nearly 10 months. But this new sinkhole, even larger.
BDP multimedia.
جميلة نعم.
Kita telepon.
Wow. Wow, amazing.
Experiencing a very serious situation. Plant management here has so far remained unavailable for comment. However, unofficial sources have indicated that the entire northern half of the plant has been sealed off. It is still too soon to tell whether or not a rumored precautionary evacuation will be put into effect. For World News Network, I'm Arthur Klassen.
Thank you, Arthur. We'll get back to you shortly, provided, of course, we can maintain satellite contact. We are continuing to receive both national and international reports. We go now to videographer Stephen Mortley. Steve.
There's absolute bedlam here. As you can see, I'm flying over the State Freeway trying to get a handle on just how much damage we're experiencing. And it's not just damage, Richard. There seems to be a tremendous amount of confusion. There's accidents literally everywhere. Trucks and cars stop. It certainly is hard to explain just what is going on.
This is the kind of thing we've been witnessing since just a few hours ago. In case you've just joined us, this is WNN's continuous global coverage of what can only be described as the greatest disaster or possibly attack in human history. It's uncertain what has brought about the catastrophic events we're witnessing. There is still no explanation forthcoming. It seems that all efforts around the globe are aimed at trying to control and stabilize the situation. Here is what we do know. At 4:59 Eastern Time, millions of people literally vanished off the face of the earth, both from this country and from around the world. We have not yet heard any official comment or explanation, but an announcement is expected shortly from the President of the United States, who it is believed has been whisked from a campaign stop in Dallas, Texas, to Air Force One. The UN Secretary General is at the UN headquarters in New York and should also have a comment shortly. It's not yet known if this mass disappearance is an isolated phenomenon or if further disappearances can be expected. We simply don't know what we're dealing with. Now, some speculate that this is a new technology that has been harnessed as a result of nuclear research, while other sources suggest that this is our first close encounter with new forms of intelligence against which we may have no defense. As you know, we are live and will be bringing you more information as it becomes available. We are now able to go to our reporter, Julie James, in Atlanta. Can you hear me, Julie?
We're live, Julie.
Julie?
We're live.
Yes, Richard, things here are completely out of control. No one has been able to explain the disappearance of what seems to be the major portion of the population of this city. Terror is the only way to describe the scene. Terror and absolute panic. It's like a real live horror movie. People don't know who or what they're dealing with. It's an enemy you can't see. But amid the chaos and violence that seems to be breaking out spontaneously around the city, many are experiencing a deep sense of loss and grief. I've been talking to many people today who are trying to deal with the fact that someone they love is missing. Each person has their own tragic story to tell.
With the sudden disappearance of literally millions of people, the entire planet is experiencing fear and confusion. Tears are flowing and tempers are flaring as people search for answers. Looting and rioting is rampant everywhere. The police simply cannot deal with the magnitude of panic that exists. Fires burn out of control in homes, apartments, and factories where it is suspected that the sudden vanishing of people everywhere has resulted in everything from stoves to welding torches being left unattended. This filling station was destroyed when an unmanned vehicle collided with the pumps. Highways are plugged with accidents caused by moving vehicles whose drivers seem to have just disappeared. 17 people were killed on a mountain road in Venezuela after the driver of this bus simply ceased to exist. This Boeing 747 crashed just after takeoff from Cairo when the pilot and co-pilot suddenly vanished. Another aircraft was seen plummeting to the ground in England. No pilot was seen ejecting, and no body was found. 2 helicopters collided over an airbase in the Philippines as their blades touched after one of the pilots vanished. Fear has launched the greatest mobilization of military force that the world has ever seen. All over the world, skies are filled with fighter aircraft patrolling their respective borders. Military sources have reported that all nations are at their highest states of readiness, but against an undefined enemy.
I've been told that just moments ago, we established a live link with NASA's Mission Control in Houston.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Earlier today, the crew aboard Space Shuttle Explorer confirmed visual contact with 1, possibly 2 objects of some kind. Further observations have confirmed that although we are uncertain of its origin, it is definitely not a craft of our own. We now have a radio contact with Explorer.
Well, while we're waiting to reestablish that feed, we do have a remote camera access to a special emergency assembly of the leaders of the European Union.
We're having a problem with the satellite link-ups.
It seems we're also having some technical trouble with our connection there. No, just push it through.
We're losing video.
Just push it through. We'll take what you've got. Ladies and gentlemen, please excuse these technical difficulties. It seems one of our cameras has gone out. Oh, here we are. Here we are.
They told us there was a God who would protect us from the unknown. But where is that God? There is no such God. What there is, it's us. Proud, strong, and capable of meeting the challenges of a new era. The time has come to look not beyond ourselves, but to ourselves. Those who clung to the old ways are gone. They were incapable of making the change, of taking the next step. Their vision was not of this earth, so they have been removed from it. But you have the power. You are able. You are chosen. I will lead you. I will show the powers that lie within you. It is for this moment that I have come to you. I will lead you into an age of peace and love unlike anything you ever imagined. I will teach you the ways of divinity because you are the power You are the glory forever and ever. Amen. There is one way and one world. Together we will take the challenge.